my body just opened. So I guess, like, fine, if you want to touch me, it just feels like you're so vulnerable.
Welcome to the Be Well Baby podcast. I'm Dr. Emily Spaeth, founder of Be Well Baby in Portland, Oregon, and the Beyond Birth Blueprint, an online community where we support families through pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and especially life with a baby. This podcast exists because I believe families deserve better than what I am seeing in my work as a physical therapist, lactation consultant, and childbirth educator. Just a quick loving note before we dive in. Everything you hear on this podcast is for educational purposes only. It's not medical advice. Every body and every baby and every season is different, and you deserve support that is personalized to you. Let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I'm talking with Malakai Benson. They are an incredible chef and baker and a non-binary parent, and also one of the most thoughtful humans that I have had the privilege of having in my life. They gave birth 8 years ago while their identity was still coming into focus, and what they experienced in hospitals, in prenatal spaces, on playgrounds, is something that every perinatal provider and every parent needs to hear. This conversation is about language. It's about belonging. It's about assumed connection. And it's also about what becomes possible when we leave room at the table for everyone. And I'm so glad that you're here for it. And I'm so excited to introduce you to Malakai.
Well, first, I want to acknowledge that it has been so long since we've had a conversation together, and it feels wild that we're about to do this. Like, it really snuck up on me, and I feel like I'm about to get to know you even better than I already do. And I'll pull the curtain back right now and tell the listeners that you happen to be my childhood best friend's spouse. So we're acquainted. And I'm unbelievably grateful that Kelsey suggested that you come on the podcast, and even more grateful that you said yes.
Oh my gosh, me too. This is such an honor. And yeah, I thought the same thing as like, oh, we haven't spoken forever. And this is also going to be really fun just to see you and talk to you and have an hour with you, so
yeah,
honored.
I don't think we've ever had this.
No, I don't think so. Unless it was like standing in your kitchen eating ice cream.
Right, with children.
Yes.
Okay, well, Malakai, can you start by sharing just a little bit about yourself, how you identify, and how you came into parenting?
My name is Malakai. I use they and them pronouns. I identify as a non-binary person, human existence. And that's very important for me to tell people because I don't want anyone to make any assumptions either way. And I think that we should leave that space for everyone, right? There are lots of non-binary people that look like me, and there are lots of non-binary folks that don't. So that's super important to my identity. And I mean, I came into parenting when I got pregnant, as we all do, but I was not one of those people that was, pining over having a kid. It just happened. And the moment that I knew, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a parent. And I'm really excited about this. And I always say that my daughter was the first person that really saw me because I was really struggling with my identity while I was pregnant. And she would not call me mama, which is what I was trying to be called at the time. She called me Baba. And like, that's who I became, right? In that moment, I became her Baba. And like, I also became Baba. Yeah. So yeah, that's really special to me.
That's so special. I guess I didn't realize that. So when you got pregnant, you didn't identify as non-binary?
Not exclusively. Like, I knew that there was something, especially as a pregnant person, I was like, I'm not having this perceived, female experience. I'm experiencing something a little bit different. And it was actually really incredible to have that window opened for me in my identity. And I don't know if I would have gotten here as quickly if I hadn't gotten pregnant at that time where I was trying to figure that out.
Yeah. what surprised you most in your own body, how you reacted to pregnancy and parenting spaces as a pregnant person who was like kind of going through a huge identity shift in so many ways? You know, you're becoming a parent, but you were also figuring out that, you know, you identify as a non-binary human, and being pregnant in that space I feel like pregnancy almost like makes everything go faster because you have to figure out who you are. And I think that there's just this, I don't know, this ability to be so permeable in pregnancy, and it can be really scary. And I'm just curious at navigating those spaces. You know, did you end up in prenatal yoga classes and things like that where you just felt like that wasn't really your space?
I feel like this is such an important question because no, I did not choose to enter those spaces. And that was also very informative for me because I grew up a team player. Like, I'm a huge jock. I love being on a team. I love being in community. That's something that's really important to me. And during this time where I really needed that, I found myself isolating and just feeling this lack of belonging. And I think that geographically, those areas aren't as available. And at the time, I was living in a tourist town. There's structure in the town, but I think that there's a lack of diversity there too, because in the off season of a tourist town like this, there's like 7,000 people, so there's only so much room for diversity, at least there was. So I was very well aware, like my doctor would tell me all the time, there was resources available. I had the pamphlets and I voluntarily opted out of those things. And I was like, I'm going to figure this out by myself.
Were you able to find any spaces where you felt comfortable?
No, honestly, at the time I wasn't. And I think that would look different now after having gone through it.
Sure.
Like that. Yeah.
I think too, like when something happens like that so suddenly and your identity has to, you're becoming a parent and it's happening, sometimes you just don't have the wherewithal to seek out a podcast or seek out a online space or even a space in your community, which may exist, but might take some digging to find,
Yeah, it's one of those things that I informed myself enough to like physically I felt ready. Like I was like, I know how this is going to happen. And I have an idea of what to expect afterwards. But as far as asking about that experience and having that shared knowledge, that was really where the lack was for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like to navigate pregnancy and birth in these medical systems that are largely built around binary assumptions? Like there's such an assumption that there's like mom and dad,
Yeah. Yeah. It's an assumption in parenting too. I will say, like, I did not realize that was just the beginning of it. Like the parenting world is still pretty binary, unfortunately, and if you want to be in that kind of relationship and be a parent, like I love that. And I want that identity to still exist for folks, I didn't realize that parenting is a continued version of that and birthing was just the beginning. And so just the lack of space, the questions of, are you comfortable in your body? Are you the birthing person? Are you comfortable enough to I use the phrase chest feed. Though leaving just the space for those questions, what are your pronouns? None of that existed. I think that we're getting better about it from what I've heard. I gave birth 8 years ago. So there's been some growth there, but yeah, it's the assumption of everything and the lack of space that is isolating.
Yeah. So the assumption being like using she, her pronouns for the birthing person and also probably using he, him pronouns for the partner,
Totally.
Or dad, mom and dad. I feel like a lot of healthcare providers will use mom and dad almost like as an endearing, thing. You know, they're trying
Absolutely,
to be sweet.
yes.
By like
yes.
calling you mom, right? Even though you definitely, even like a very cis, you know, hetero mom identifying human didn't feel like a mom when I was pregnant. And so even someone calling me mom during pregnancy, I was like, ugh. So I can see how, especially if you don't identify like that in your own body, that would just not feel right. Were there any areas that you did feel really supported in your pregnancy?
My family was amazing. Thankfully, I had that area of support, and my friends were incredible too. But it was the people that knew me and knew me past those like perceptions and assumptions. That's where I felt the most supported. And so that gave me the space to, you know, ask the hard questions to my mom. Like, she's always been so supportive of my identity, thankfully. And without that, I think it would have just been, you know, so much worse. And I want to circle back to, like, when you get called mom or dad, right, in a doctor's office, the intention is usually so pure.
Right.
And so that is not to say that I felt like everyone was against me. I was just like really confused and separated, I felt like, from this world. And so when I was surrounded by those people that I knew were going to like love my kids so hard, those were the really juicy, fulfilling moments for me that really got me through.
Yeah. What do you wish that providers really got and understood about gender diverse birthing people?
Language is huge. Language matters to us. Language builds worlds. And it can very quickly have someone feel included or have them feel isolated and unheard and uncomfortable. You know, just you're so uncomfortable in pregnancy, as you know. And so any way you can make someone feel more comfortable and ask those, you know, what might be awkward questions, you're actually, again, just like opening that door and creating that space. And so that's what I feel like is really missing. Don't make assumptions, ask questions.
Yeah. And I think language is so huge. It's such a missed opportunity so much of the time. I'm lucky enough to live in Portland, Oregon, where like in a circle gathering, people introduce themselves. Hi, I'm Emily, she, her pronouns, you know, like it's just the way that we do, but that's not the case everywhere. And I think that, intake forms are an incredible opportunity to immediately be able to have pronouns available that someone might identify with. And then the important piece there is actually reading the intake form and using the appropriate pronouns. And I wonder, because I have personally been in the situation where I was teaching in a class and I didn't know anything about the group of students, and I totally misgendered someone. And it was, you know, heartbreaking. I'm not like, that's never my intention. But the thing because what I did, essentially I did a demonstration on this person in front of the group, and I used she, her pronouns when I was talking about their body. And it didn't come to me until weeks later that I had misgendered this person. And so I took, and I'm not sure if this was a good idea or not, but with their permission, I talked to the whole class and I said, you know, when you are a body on a table in front of a group of 50 people, it's intimidating. And all of you know their pronouns. So you can also, if I'm misgendering them over and over again, I'm an adjunct, I show up for a few classes. It's pretty clear that I just don't know. Yeah. You can say something, and you should. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, good. Like, we have to make change somehow. So I think I have to balance this all the time, because it's also not necessarily your job to step into every single medical provider's office and be like, oh, sorry, no, it's they, them, you know? So I'm curious, like, what comes up for you when you hear that story? And what do you think about just talking to other people who are birthing and are, clearly in a very gendered space, and how they should kind of come to their providers.
Yeah, I think that there's such an opportunity for, a partner or a friend to advocate for you. And like, that is an incredible thing to have. And not everyone has it, right? Or in this space where these classmates knew, there could have been the thought that maybe they would embarrass this person if they spoke up, and kind of swing the other way.
Me.
Or embarrass you. Exactly. And so there's so much that goes into it, and that happens. I grew up in a society that taught me to gender folks the way I was taught, and even I do it, when I'm talking to my daughter about somebody, I will catch myself. And so I want to give you some grace there, first of all, because it happens, and it happens to me. But I think what comes up for me is just the lack of experience that we have with this, and kind of acknowledging that we're bringing this situation to light, right? Like, non-binary folks are not new into existence. We've existed forever. We will continue to exist forever. But these conversations that we're having are very new. And so if you are feeling, to someone that is non-binary and wants to be a birthing person, is a pregnant person, if you're feeling intimidated, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And that doesn't make you any less of who you are as a non-binary person, right? Like, it is okay to want to hide away or to pull back or to feel uncomfortable advocating for yourself. I think that it's, for a lot of folks, a really hard thing to do, especially in such a sensitive area. And I had the incredible opportunity to be on a queer birthing panel about a year ago by my friend Sam. She runs field therapy here in Colorado, and there was 4 of us, and one of the folks was pregnant, for queer birthing people with different identities. And we were given the chance to be on a panel to providers and to have them ask questions and to share our experience. And so, being on this podcast, being able to be heard and sharing our experiences, like, I think that's what's missing. And I think that, the more we show up, the less that's going to happen. But it might be a little stodgy along the way. Like,
we're all learning.
We're all learning. Yes. And it's just a little bit of a revolution, I think. And I hope that can feel empowering for somebody in that situation that might be feeling a little bit less empowered in the moment.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pop in here and say that if the Be Well Baby podcast has helped you in any way, if our team has helped you in any way, the people who find us because they heard about us from a friend, because they heard about us from a midwife or a doula or their pediatrician or their OB. And we value those connections so much. And we know that the only way for people to find excellent healthcare is for people to talk about it. So if you have a minute, please leave the podcast a review. It will help people find this podcast. If we band together and shout this from the rooftops, then we will be able to change healthcare. Thanks.
You've talked about challenging assumed connection in parenting and birthing spaces. And I'd really love for you to kind of explain what that means to you and kind of dive into that concept, because I think it actually could apply to more than just non-binary birthing people.
Yeah, definitely. I'm real passionate about this because, again, it's something that started in birth, and I think that it touches a multitude of folks. My best example for this is the playground. Okay, we spend a lot of time at playgrounds with our young kiddos, and when you see a female-bodied person, you assume that they're the mom, you assume that they are the birthing person. And when you see a mixed kid with a white person, such as myself, you assume that maybe they're not related. And so these two separate things have happened to me multiple times, right? Where I have a very femme-presenting partner. She's adorable. She's got her cute earrings on. And you see us together, and folks always assume that she's the birthing person.
Yeah.
And Our daughter calls her mom. It's her stepmom. And so I love that she gets acknowledged as mom in that moment, but she's so quick to say, oh no, Malakai gave birth. I could never do that. And I don't think that that's an opportunity that you always get. But yeah, it's so good. She's a great advocate. But when I'm on the playground by myself, first of all, I'm kind of like, I feel more comfortable talking to femme presenting people because that's how I grew up. But I kind of look like I should hang with the dads and like maybe we'll have more to talk about. And so I'm kind of in the middle because sometimes you start talking to someone and they're like, why are you talking to me? You know? And then on the other side, I get approached by more male presenting people on the playground to have some small talk than I do femme presenting folks say. So I'm using a very strict binary here to demonstrate what I'm talking about. But it's
right.
Again,
and probably your reality is not that you exist in a world of femme and male presenting people, but just that like this is the example that we're using. And I love that because it's so true. And the playground is such a weird place because you always have like, sometimes there's a grandparent and they look really young and you assume that that's just the mom or whatever, you know, and I think that, those assumptions can be damaging, you know, and especially over time, I wonder how it feels on your heart to always be not acknowledged as the birthing person. Does it bother you or does it sort of just live inside your reality?
Yeah, it depends on the day, to be honest. You know, if I'm perhaps feeling disconnected from my daughter, I think it might bother me a little bit more. But at the end of the day, she knows I'm her baba. She knows that we share that bond. And I know that. And that's really what matters for me. And sometimes it's an uncomfortable, like, oh, no, I birthed her. And sometimes it's a moment of glory where I'm like, oh, no, I birthed her. You know, so it kind of, it can be here and there, perhaps. Thankfully, I don't have this loneliness in that aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what you said about that because I think so many people listening are likely not yet to where you are in the parenting journey, and parenting can just be so challenging. And there are so many moments of disconnection with your children that you could never imagine when you're first with them, you know? I'm curious, I'd love to talk about the birth and how it felt for your body to do that.
So awkward. I like knew what was happening, but there was this disconnection there for me. Where I was like, I have this body that I'm still figuring out, and now it's going to do this thing that I'm not quite connected to yet. And I kept a sports bra on when I was giving birth, and I got asked all the time about that during the 24-hour span of being there. And I was like, oh my God, there's so much going on here. Please stop talking about like the one article of clothing I'm wearing. Please stop making that this big thing. And so, the act of giving birth, once I was finally pushing, was just so empowering and incredible. And the relief and just extreme joy that I felt when I held my daughter, there was no question there, right? Like it was an immediate connection to her. And that felt incredible after having this disconnection with myself. So it's almost like she brought me back into myself. Like I could cry talking about it.
Oh, Malakai.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. When, as a lactation consultant, I'm always helping people with chest feeding and breastfeeding. When you were going through that, because it is not easy. It is challenging. Did you have any were you deciding whether or not to try and chest feed? Or were you just like, I'm definitely going to chest feed. I want to try, what was your thought process and And how did you navigate that? Did you have healthcare providers helping, or how did that look?
Yeah, I honestly couldn't wait to tell you this because I knew that you'd be mad, but
Oh no.
or have some feelings. But I always wanted to chest feed, and not just because I was told that that was the thing to do. I really wanted that connection, and I wanted to be able to use my body in a way that, again, felt empowering, that felt really important to me as I struggled to find my identity in my body. I was like, this is a thing I can do with my body that feels outside of myself and that I can give back to this precious human. But after I'd given birth, I've never chest fed before, and so I was struggling. And I mean, even if you have, it's a struggle for folks too. That's not to say you figure it out and it's good to go. But I was struggling, and they sent in a lactation consultant, and she just walked over and grabbed me and grabbed my chest, and I didn't have anything on. And yeah, pit in my stomach. I was so uncomfortable. And it was helpful what she told me, but it was just so jarring. Yeah, I know, right? I'm trying to give her some grace too, but it was so jarring for me. And I was like, okay, if this is what it's like to talk to a lactation consultant, like, again, I'm going to figure this out on my own, and it didn't feel like ego at the time. Maybe it was, but it was me being scared and trying to protect myself and protect my body. And so I struggled with like direct contact chest feeding. After a couple of months, I was like, I'm just going to pump, and I would chest feed every now and then, especially at night. But that space in between, like pumping and then, getting to share my milk, that felt better for me. And that was my experience. And I did that for a year, and I felt really good about that. Looking back, I was like, I'm so proud of myself for not putting this other unneeded pressure, and for being able to persevere through a very jarring moment.
Totally.
And being able to have the connection was still there. Like, I think that pumping gives you just as much as a connection. It did for me. And
totally.
It was a great time for me to read, which I really loved.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, and I think pumping is such hard work. And when you're pumping exclusively, it's a lot more dishes. It's a lot more time. It's just, it's a lot of work. And when you decide, like, this is what I'm going to do for my baby, and you persevere for a year doing it, of course, that makes you feel more connected, I'm curious what the struggle was with chest feeding. Was it pain, or was it like the physical contact? What was the difficulty?
Yeah, it was not the physical contact. I know that. There was some pain, but it was mostly just latching. Like, I would just get so frustrated, and I was hesitant to ask anyone about it. I really think that it could have been resolved easily if I had a different experience and felt comfortable asking those questions. Because I had discomfort in my body, I would get to a point where I was like, I'm frustrated. I'm uncomfortable now. I think there's something wrong with me. Maybe I don't know how to do this. The hormones, like the waves of emotion. I think it was just kind of this perfect storm.
Yeah. Yeah. And to have had such a negative experience with someone, if anyone is a lactation consultant listening to this, I see this a lot in the hospital specifically. I think maybe it's just that a lot of lactation consultants are at work and this is their job, and they just shove a boob in a baby's mouth and it's good to go. First of all, I think the most effective lactation consultants never even maybe put their hands on you or your baby, because it's a skill that you have to learn. It's muscle memory. And if you can't find the right position yourself, how are you supposed to do it? So maybe what she did helped in the moment to get your baby latched for one time, but it didn't help with the long-term journey of chest feeding. So I just think that's a huge, important point for professionals listening to take away from this conversation. Hearing that experience is just always so heartbreaking to me. And unfortunately, it's not uncommon. So if you are a non-binary pregnant person listening to this, just be aware that it is absolutely okay for your partner or friend or somebody in the birthing room with you to advocate for you and say, oh, please don't touch them. Thank you.
Yes,
please. And it feels so hard as the birthing person because you're like, I don't know, my body just opened. So I guess like, fine, if you want to touch me, it just feels like you're so vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And to have somebody who's prepared to advocate for you and to ask those questions like, but how are they going to do this at home? The questions that will actually lead to a successful chest feeding relationship.
Yeah. And actually that reminds me of something that I did when I changed pronouns at a job. I wrote a little slip of paper. This is the name I want to use. These are the pronouns I use. If you have any questions, you can ask me about it. But like, what a great tool for birthing folks, maybe going in where they don't know everyone. There's going to be rotating staff. Maybe set yourself up with a tool like that. It's like, this is who I am. These are the words that feel good for me. And if you have any questions, please ask. Maybe it's me, or please ask my partner, or please ask my friend or my mom, or my dad, or whoever is there with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh, I love that. I think having multiples even of a little card and stick it out in the door so that people can see it when they come in, stick it next to the hand sanitizer, stick it next to your bed, have one to hand someone, I think you can make it really funny.
Yeah. Come with business cards, this is who I am.
Yeah. I think that's great. And, medical charts are starting to be more gender inclusive.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So hopefully, this is a stopgap as we all learn better language and better use of language. And I know we've kind of touched on the importance of language, but let's talk about why language matters so much in birthing spaces.
Yeah, it's kind of your first contact with someone, right? When you are talking, and we'll go back to this playground example. Oh, you must be so-and-so's mom. Oh, you must be so-and-so's grandparent. It can get awkward when you're not leaving that space. And maybe you say, you call someone a grandparent who is actually someone that had a child later in life. And I think what happens in those moments is that unfortunately, that space sometimes breeds shame.
Yeah.
And I think that shame can just be so damaging and so scary and so hard to move through. And so when we leave room at the table, leave room in our conversation for everyone, and trust me, it can be hard to switch language. Even for me, as I said, I understand these things aren't going to happen overnight, nor should anyone expect their language to, but we help everyone around us feel less isolated. We become more of a community, and our kids hear us talking. And so if there's a kid that's struggling with their identity, or they're making assumptions about what a parent should be or shouldn't be, or who should be a caretaker, unfortunately, they hear language and then get a usually black and white identified idea. And so I think that's the big thing is let's just not, right? Let's just not isolate. And that doesn't mean I think everyone should use they and them pronouns. Sure. My partner, she's she, her, I am a woman. And I love that. But I'm also reminded of this in, saying caretaker. Male-bodied folks, especially in hetero-presenting relationships, they are usually assumed to not be the main caretaker.
Sure.
And I think that's also part of this conversation, right? Is they deserve the space to be included and not isolated out of a birthing story, and not isolated out of a conversation of what your kid does after school, right? Or even how they refer to their body. they deserve that space too. And there are folks that look male presenting that are birthing bodies. And that's also why that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of siloing and isolation just in our world. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the ways that people can just be more inclusive of all the humans around us, And it's challenging, but also not that hard. And it's okay to make mistakes. I think that's where some people get frustrated, is when they just can't get it,
If your baby ever needs a pacifier, and not all babies do, the one that I would want in your world is the Ninny. It's the only pacifier designed to actually mimic the shape and function of the breast. It looks like this. It's very soft here, like an areola, and then harder, like a nipple. And this shape means that it supports healthy oral development instead of interfering with it. I really love it because babies don't just passively hold it in their mouth like the ones with a bulb on the end. They have to actively suck. It's hard work. It's my workout pacifier. And that matters for feeding, for regulation, and for long-term oral function. It's especially beautiful for breastfed babies who need a little extra soothing without confusion. If you're listening and you're pregnant, postpartum, or buying for someone you love, you can grab a Ninny through the link in the show notes or use the code BeWellBaby for 10% off at checkout.
So what would you say to, forgive me, but the boomers who are like, I can't figure out the they them thing?
I forgive you, but I'm not sure they ever will.
Don't let them listen.
We'll put that at the end of the episode notes, maybe. These are the age restrictions for listening to this one.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is a conversation that I've had with a lot of folks. In my work right now, I work with a lot of folks that are older than me. My mom has said this to me too, and I don't think she'll mind me saying this because her intentions are so pure. Yeah. Right. And so when someone actually says that to me, they're like, sorry, I'm trying to get it right. Or sorry, I messed up again. Or sorry, I just can't do it. What I hear is that you're acknowledging that you care. Yeah. Right. Like, you're taking the second to pause and talk to me about this instead of glazing over or kind of just ignoring that it happened, or, oh, I mean, her, he, them, they're not mincing words here. They're like, I'm sorry, and I see you, and I want to see you for who you are. And what I say to folks when I have this come up is, thank you so much for acknowledging that. And it's hard to learn and unlearn things that we have known for so long, and we'll just keep practicing together.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Good cry. Well, because I think that so many people are afraid to apologize. And I think repair, in probably every single aspect of our lives, repair is the only thing that matters. We're allowed to fuck up. We can make mistakes, but it's about what we do after that really matters.
Yeah, that is such a powerful lesson. And again, it reminds me that our kids are watching, and I think that one of the most powerful things that we can teach them is how to say sorry, how, that information that they don't have to be perfect. The pressure that puts on us is just stifling sometimes. And what an incredible thing to show somebody is that you don't have to show up perfectly. You get to try again, and you're going to be loved through all that no matter what. Those are adjacent conversations to me.
Totally. Just, that is actually something I am so grateful for. Just watching my kids grow up in this environment where they don't assume. They'll even come home and tell me, I don't know their pronouns.
Yes. And beautiful.
Yesterday they were she, her, but I don't know, and it's just not even a thing. And it's really clear that we're always evolving. You know, there's just, there's hope for people to be kind to one another.
Yes, I love hearing that, especially like right now. That's such a beautiful message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope that we can all believe it.
Yeah, I think we just keep showing up and doing our best and saying sorry and listening to each other's stories. Like those are empowering, uniting actions.
Yeah. I wasn't going to ask you about parenting, but now I'm feeling really drawn to talking about what it's like to be going through elementary school. Essentially, I feel like as parents, we're going to school with our kids almost.
Oh my gosh, so true.
We are at the age of our kids. We're also learning the math they're learning,
Yeah, what is Neptune doing? Okay.
Exactly. We're learning everything in a different way because now there's new research to show that you learn math this way now, So, but as a non-binary parent navigating this space, because I think a lot of times in pregnancy and in birth, it's really forgotten that at the other side of this, you have an entire lifetime of parenting.
Totally. Yeah.
So how do you feel as a non-binary parent in that space with your beautiful daughter, who is such a firecracker? What are sort of some of the big takeaways that you have, even like dealing with her teachers and being a parent? Tell me your parenting wisdom.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Everything I know I've learned from someone else. That's a huge thing. It's just community is everything and storytelling is everything. And, like I said about birthing, like it's kind of the same actually, is that there's still a lot of assumed connection and there's still both of us trying to figure this out. So I will share that, my daughter calls me Baba. She loves that. I check in with her about it all the time, about how it feels. Not like every day, but every month or so. Just as kids change and evolve, like you said, and as I evolve. And she loves that we share this very special word, right? That feels so true to both of us. But when we are out in public, she will oftentimes call me mom. And I finally asked her about it a few months ago. And I was like, are you uncomfortable? Like, do you not want to call me Baba anymore? And she goes, no, I love that you're my Baba. You're the best Baba. But no one knows what a Baba is. And I was like, yeah, that's a really good point. And so she's trying to get this assumed connection, right? She's like, oh, you're talking about your mom. I'm going to talk about the person that birthed me that you would call mom, but I call something else.
Yeah.
And so that's usually something that I will talk to her teachers about. When I do meet the teacher night, I'm Malakai. I use they, them pronouns. You might hear Jennifer call me Baba. Sometimes she calls me mom. And so I'll try to bridge that gap for her. But besides that, I mean, I'm just a parent and I'm just trying to figure things out and do my best just like everyone else. And I'm reading the books and I'm listening to the podcasts and, some of them feel really great and true for me. And some of them are binary and I still relate to them. And I think that folks still see me as a parent, really, especially the ones that will have a conversation with me at the birthday party. Is like, I'm just a parent, and you're just a parent. And like, I love being a parent. So like, let's talk about that and let's talk about our kids. And there doesn't need to be this, kind of like categorizing off. And I thankfully live in a place where, I think there's maybe 2 or 3 other queer families at my daughter's elementary school right now.
That's awesome.
But that's kind of a lot for us. We're proud of that. But no, I don't feel uncomfortable walking into her school, and they know that I'm Juniper's parent, and I get a lot of validation being seen as that.
Yeah. It's interesting because Schaefer actually he goes by Pop, And at school, Sadie calls him her dad. And he's like, I'm not your dad. That's so weird. Like, why would you call me that? And so it's interesting because kids are always just trying to fit in and or explain things in a way that other people understand. And I just find that so interesting and I wonder what will happen with that, as she grows. And it's parenting is this constant nostalgia, I feel like, where you're like, but just a year ago they were a baby and now they're doing this new thing. And they have a sassy ponytail and they play soccer.
Yes, they do. And it's constant nostalgia and also constant grief. And I think that's part of it that I wasn't ready for, is that I will be grieving the stages of my daughter's life for the lifetime, for her whole life. And I love that I get to grieve that. And at the same time, like it's so hard. But it's also nice that it keeps changing and growing, because as our kids grow, they're different people. And, I've watched my daughter, where were we? We were leaving a soccer practice, and this was when I was coaching her in soccer. Speaking of sassy soccer girls, like she's one of them. And someone misgendered me and used different pronouns. And she goes, they're a they them, okay? Like, it's just so cool.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And it's so wild to, think about how, it's only been a few years since you birthed her, and now she's out there advocating.
Yes. Yeah. The kids, like, they got it. They understand, the same way that like Sadie is able to go translate language and be like, this person is dad. Like, it's pretty incredible that they're capable of doing that, really.
Yeah, totally. Malakai, what do you think becomes possible, like in the universe, when we can, as a society, expand our definition of birthing people?
This is such a good question. I think that unity becomes possible. And I think that without unity, we have loneliness and despair and darkness, even in the small pieces, even for one person. But the more unified we are, the stronger we are, the more included everyone feels, the more included our youth feel. I just think there's nothing negative that can come from that.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who, there's this sense of, whenever I teach, I talk about the importance of language, especially because I'm always teaching on, birthing people and pregnancy and, and so I talk about the erasure, and that I'm, no matter what I say, mom, mama, birthing body, whoever, I try to use all terms, because I'm not in any way trying to erase anyone's experience. So what would you say to those people who are like, but I am a woman, like Kelsey, I'm a woman, I'm a she, her. And I, love being a woman. I love the femininity and the feminine energy that birthing brings in, whatever, there's so many spaces like that exists, but, what would you say to someone who's, feeling trepidatious about taking away, the mother term?
Yeah, there's room for all of it, right? Like, space is not finite in that sense. And when you advocate for yourself in that way, you show others that they can advocate for themselves in the same way, right? So it, like, in your group, when you're in the circle and you're like, hi, I'm Emily, I'm she, her, you give me permission and a more comfortable space to say, hey, I'm Malakai, they, them.
Yeah.
So that is advocacy work when everyone is included.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that there is room for everyone. Space is not finite. It's not. Yeah.
Nope, not at all.
Thank you so much, Malakai.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, personally, this was like really special and I just appreciate it. And just being an advocate and holding this space for queer folks and like wanting to share this message, it really means a lot. So thank you for being your incredible self.
Thank you. And thank you for trusting me with your story. And I just love you.
Yeah, I love you too. I hope you have a wonderful night. I hope you get to relax
Thank
soon.
you. Thank you. This is my last interview, so I'm good. I'm just gonna, wrap my life up and then be able to be mom again.
Perfect. Perfect.
All right, Malakai.
All right.
Talk soon. Bye.
Malakai, thank you so much for trusting me with your story. And Malakai, thank you so much for trusting me with your story. And to everyone listening, whether you are a birthing person, a provider, a partner, or a parent just trying to figure it all out, I hope this episode reminded you that repair is possible, that space is not finite, and that the words we use have the power to build worlds. If this episode moved you, please share it. Send it to your OB, your midwife, your childbirth educator, your bestie. And if you are a non-binary person who felt seen today, I'm so glad, and you belong. And I'm so glad you're here. I'll see you next week. Audio and music production by the amazing Peter Gary, with Lillian Ewert managing all scheduling and operations at Be Well Baby, including this podcast. Thank you both for making this happen. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and I'd love for you to follow us on Instagram at BeWellBabyPDX or visit BeWellBaby.org to book a time to chat with us. And if this episode helped you, please send it to someone who's pregnant, postpartum, or someone in your life who wants to support you better. No one should have to do this alone. Welcome to Be Well Baby. You're in the right place.